Part of my story is really who my dad is, and growing up with him as a father, he founded Interactive Brokers, and is extremely passionate about that company, as well as about finance and capitalism in general. And me personally have always been extremely drawn to the natural world. And I remember at that young age of 14 is when I also started to recognize that we had access to more resources than was normal. And so I started at that young age to kind of see how oh, maybe one day I'll be able to help the planet with these resources. And so I've been thinking from that lens and continued my passion on studying the environment. I went and studied environmental studies at CU Boulder, and I was going up and I was spending my summers in Montana, and I was working on regenerative ranches. And our side of the fence had this rich, dark, black topsoil, and on the other side, you had just dust and desert. And I was like, why isn't everybody doing it this way? It's so clearly better. The other side of that story, which is that financially, those regenerative ranches on average lost a little bit of money every year, whereas traditionally managed ones were profitable. Our economy was incentivizing this poorer style of land management, while the better style was that extra value was not being compensated for. This was also the time when I was studying economics in college. And so I remembered the day where they taught us about this concept, externalities. And what we're seeing now is these things that are considered externalities are the health of the air that we all share, the health of the oceans that we all share, the health and equity within communities, socially as well. And so all of these quote unquote externalities are the things that we now see being really not cared for. And it's because they're left out of the equation. They're not accounted for. That's when the two things really came together for me, was my love of nature and the natural world, and seeing this gap or void in our economy. It was at this time also that my father set up a foundation so that we could give philanthropic grants. So I took it upon myself to really get a deeper understanding of our financial system. I was really struggling at this time to figure out, how do I invest this much money into the public markets without contributing to the problems that we are, attempting to solve with the foundation. And it was really challenging. I saw how much these large decisions were being made based on this one single bottom line profit metric. And the world and life is so much more complex than just one bottom line. And what are the other impacts of these companies or these investments that we're supporting that we're not considering? I moved to New Mexico and started working with a nonprofit called BIONEERS. And a lot of their work is really holistic. It focuses on all the aspects that we kind of need to transform on this planet. That's when I really started to focus a lot on Indigenous peoples' empowerment and Indigenous wisdom, and that earth-based mentality that is present in those cultures. That intelligence, that wisdom is something that we really, really need to integrate into our system today. After 3 years of that, I saw ESG kind of hit the map. And I had a document pending in my inbox whether I was going to join Interactive Brokers or not. I knew that my dad was stepping down as CEO, and I did a lot of inner looking and seeing really, can I add value? Can I join this with authenticity and in good conscience with myself, and know that I'm doing it because I actually have something to offer. And I was seeing what ESG was, and I still see it as a baby step in the direction that our economy needs to go, but at least it was a foot in the door that I could work with. So when I joined Interactive Brokers, I kind of did a holistic push for ESG sustainability. I really wanted to bring about a different consciousness when coming into an investment environment. All investments are impact investments. So it's just, how conscious are we of the impact that they're having? And so the app was really designed to make finance more accessible to everybody, and also to bring about the knowledge that what you choose to do here really does create the world that we're all living in. And so we came up with these 13 values based loosely off of the SDGs and covers, the whole swath of values that we should be considering when making financial decisions. And you get to rate all 13 of those values. And then the next step, you can also put screens in, which is the more traditional impact investment strategies. But what it will do is, say you already have a portfolio, for example, you will see it through what we call our impact lens. So you'll see this circle. In the middle of the circle is a letter grade. That letter grade corresponds to how aligned is your financial investments with what you've stated to care about. And each section of that ring corresponds to a position in your portfolio. And the color of that section dictates to you how aligned is that position for you based on your values or not. And if it's misaligned or it's contradictory with your values, it'll pop out and say this is misaligned with this value. And you'll see companies that are in a similar industry with a similar market cap that have practices that are more aligned with what you care about. And you can click the swap button and literally and seamlessly transfer your capital from this lesser aligned company to this more aligned company. And what I would like to see maybe in my lifetime, that philanthropy is no longer needed, that our economy values that work and the value held within, nonprofit work as something that's valuable and deserves compensation. And so we'll end up seeing an economy that is incentivizing life and growth and gift, as opposed to one that is incentivizing, extraction and death. If we don't have a planet, we can't enjoy any of the profit that you might be making. And then in the last year, I also founded my organization called One Small Planet. And the idea behind that being, we all live on this one small planet together. We need to take care of her together. And it's kind of a call to team life. And what do we have to do to make it through this big transformation that we're in? And so that's really a lot of my passion goes into that organization, which had to do with land regeneration, as well as more private impact investment, and relationship building and storytelling. This transformation takes more than just actions on the outside. It's holistic in nature, and we actually as individuals need to look inside and see where are we contributing to these systems. And it's that introspective work that is often the most challenging, because we don't like to look at the nasty parts of ourselves. So changing the inside aspect, and then also the relationships. So going into those kind of really touchy dynamics socially, with relationship to nature and relationship to our fellow brothers and sisters humans, and how do we respect each other? How do we relate to each other? How do we take the time to really understand somebody else's perspective and put our best foot forward there and do it in a way that hasn't really been done before? It's challenging sometimes, but I also see that as the biggest gift, is like those healings, the healing that happens in those new relationships. So I think the real thing is taking that step back and taking that step in to really look at, like, what do I care about personally the most? And how do we walk that? How do we stand for those? And how do we make sure that every action that we're taking in our lives, again, closing that gap between what's inside and outside, and how is every action that we take aligned with our inner values? And it takes a lot of work to change habits and to change our base belief systems. And so that, I think, is the biggest tip, is really just like inviting that next level of awareness and consciousness. Like, I'm just feeling a lot of hope these days in how excited people are about this transformation. And it's challenging to balance that with a lot of the destruction and the pain that we're seeing in the world at the same time. But the time of the lone wolf is over, and we are a collective, and we need to all get together on a team life.